Hey everyone, welcome back to the Infatuasian podcast. Today we are talking about a movement to save Cantonese language programs near and far. And if you don't know, Cantonese is a variant of the Chinese language originating from the southern province of Guang Dong and spoken by approximately 80 million people all over the world. And it's really all over the world, since the Cantonese folks from Guang Dong were some of the most active migrants for the last, almost 200 years. It's, of course, the dominant language in Hong Kong and Macau, and also very common in Southeast Asia and in cities like San Francisco and New York and Seattle and Honolulu, etc. But today we're going to talk about programs and saving these different programs at different universities. And this is another Kimberly Szeto production. She helped me connect with folks, and so she's coming on to co-host again. So, hey, Kim, how's it going?
Hello. Always good to be here.
I know. I like having you here. So thanks for introducing me to this mission to save Cantonese language programs. How did you get involved with these folks?
Yeah, for me, I think I actually initially heard about the program because it got pretty good coverage all around. And then I heard one of Jamie's open webinars with Zhang Lo Si and another Professor Tam. It's like, wow, okay, time for me to get involved, but I couldn't get involved at that time. And I think I joined about half a year later. I joined, I think, August of 2020 or something, or 2021. My years are all mixed up. But for me, my background with Cantonese is I'm in ABC. My family is from Hong Kong. My grandparents on both sides are from Guang Dong. So it's definitely something that resonates with me. And for me, it's something that I regret not speaking when I was a kid because when my grandparents were alive. It was something that I didn't do with them. And it's something I really regret. And now it's kind of me refining kind of my Cantonese identity through language.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I ended up here.
Yeah. All right. So you're going to help me introduce one of our guests, but let me start by introducing one of our two special guests today. Joining us from New Haven, Connecticut is Jamie Tam. Jamie is the president of Save Cantonese and is also an assistant professor at the Yale School of Public Health. But as an undergrad, she was out here down the road at Stanford. And about 2 years ago, Jamie was the lead organizer in launching a campaign to help us save the Cantonese program at Stanford when it was on the chopping block. So through her and the community's effort, Jamie was able to get some amazing results, which we'll talk about in a second. But first, let's say hi to Professor Jamie Tam. Thanks so much for coming on our show, Jamie.
Hi, thank you for the warm welcome. I'm obsessed with the name of this podcast.
Yeah.
Really brilliant, very witty.
It's just, anything that we love that's Asian is our Infatuasian. So yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
So how's it going on the East Coast? Are you laughing at us soft Californians when we complain about a little bit of rain? Are you judging us a little?
Yeah. I was in San Diego for the holidays and I got to go to the beach, enjoy the sun, and it was just like glorious in Southern California. Meanwhile, the brutal winter storm hit us out here in the Northeast. So I'm always jealous.
Now, are you a native speaker? Like, did you learn Cantonese from your family or did you take some classes along the way?
Yeah, so some background on me. I'm from the Bay Area. I was born and raised there. Cantonese was actually my first language, but when I was in grade school, it was just hard on the playground, not being able to speak English. And so I completely lost my Cantonese because I wanted to fit in and be able to, speak English with the other kids. And I just sort of went through a lot of sort of internalized racist experience where you shut down the culture that you're from and you refuse to use chopsticks. I was just an awful kid to my parents. And it wasn't until later when I was a teenager when I really was like, I wish, I'd gone to Chinese school every Saturday, but it was always for Mandarin and no one in my family speaks Mandarin. And so, Cantonese was the way for me to stay connected to my family, and I couldn't speak it well. I could say like "gong hei fa toi," and I could give dim sum. Like I can order stuff in dim sum. Like I can order stuff at a dim sum restaurant, but I couldn't really have conversations. So when I started college at Stanford, and I realized that Stanford was one of a small number of colleges and universities that offer Cantonese language programs, I enrolled, and I ended up taking Cantonese classes from freshman through senior
Oh,
year.
wow.
I spent a summer studying abroad in Hong Kong. And so Cantonese language classes really changed my life and helped me to reconnect with my heritage and who I am, and like repair a lot of the harm that both me and my family had to endure in a, English dominant society.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's my background.
Yeah. No, I bet there's a lot of folks out there that can relate to your story of just trying to shut down your roots just for the sake of assimilation, trying not to stand out. When you're a kid, you don't want to be the one that stands out. You just want to be the one that blends in. So we'll talk a lot more about that. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your efforts as well.
Thank you.
Yes, and I wanted to introduce our next guest. We have Julia, a San Francisco native. Julia Quan, or Guan is a health educator, community doula, and is the founder of Save Cantonese at CCSF. That's the City College of San Francisco, for those of you guys who don't know the acronym. And Julia kind of came about because unfortunately the same thing happened at CCSF as it did in Stanford, where the language program was put onto the chopping board. And she's been so involved these past 2 years in both Save Cantonese at Stanford as well as CCSF. And I'd like to welcome Julia.
Yay, hey, Julia.
Hi, thank you for the warm welcome. I just love hearing Jamie's story all over again. I've heard it a lot, but every time I hear it, it gives me chills because it's so relatable.
What's your story like? How did you learn Cantonese?
So my family is from Hong Kong, and they immigrated here into San Francisco in the early 80s, late 70s. And so my family has deep roots here in SF and in Hong Kong. I myself, I spoke Cantonese as a kid. My grandparents didn't speak any English at all, but very similarly to Jamie, I found assimilation not only a necessity, but I found it as something that I think I wanted to do just to fit in. I went to a white high school, and I remember I cringe thinking about this now, but I remember thinking like, oh yeah, like my Chinese isn't that good, but that's okay because none of my friends speak Cantonese anyway, so it doesn't matter. And when I think back at the mentality I had back then, I just I cringe. I feel like so much shame around that. And it wasn't until I was in college and being in healthcare.
Oh yeah.
When working in healthcare in SF, majority of patients who are Chinese and even Vietnamese too, in San Francisco speak Cantonese. And just my limited Canto and not being able to speak with people fully, it really motivated me to go back to community college and take Cantonese language classes, not only to be able to speak to members of my family, but to make sure that people are receiving culturally competent and linguistically inclusive care.
Yeah, no, super important. Yeah, for me, I'm kind of one of those ABCs that was really ABC, and my parents were born here as well. My dad was born in South Dakota, and he's the youngest of 8 siblings. So his older sister was like 20 something years older than him. So this was way back. I'm way older than you guys. So this was way back in the 30s and 40s. So, you definitely didn't want to stand out back then. So he only knows English. I don't think he even knows very much Chinese at all. Now, my mom grew up in Chinatown, so she grew up speaking it. And she tried with us a little bit, but we only knew a couple words. But so I actually went to UC Davis, and they had a Cantonese program. It was actually part of their Asian American Studies department. It wasn't part of the linguistics department. I don't think they have it anymore. I think the professor I had passed away actually while I was still there, and I don't think they replaced him. So it's kind of one of those stories that almost happened at Stanford, right? Where the professor was retiring, and then they said, well, when you're done, we're just not going to renew it.
Although what happened at Stanford was I think that's a really tragic story. And I guess I want to I guess one thing I'm noticing is we talk about these tragedies as if they're isolated incidents, like where a language program just disappears, right? But this is a thing that happens quietly behind the scenes all the time, right? Yeah. They're just like an instructor retires, instructor dies, instructor leaves, and they're just well, it's not worth funding anyways. And then the program is gone,
Yeah.
and I think it's really, like the example you just shared of UC Davis. I know UC Davis used to offer it, right? There used to be more places that offered Cantonese language classes. And what happened at Stanford was with COVID-19, they were making all these budget cuts and they decided to cut the Cantonese program. And of course they weren't willing to admit that that's what they were doing. Instead, they just didn't renew the contract of the only Cantonese instructor on campus. And so when you don't renew the contract of the sole Cantonese instructor on campus, that means the program's dead.
Program's dead, yeah.
Right? So when that happened, it was kind of a call to action where a lot of alumni like myself, Zheng Lo-Si, my Cantonese teacher, I view her like another mom. She really helped me come into my identity in undergrad, and like fighting for a kind of justice for her and a justice for Cantonese language teachers everywhere, that they should be treated with respect, they should be paid fairly, and they're the shepherds of our culture. That's how we can like reconnect with where we came from through language. So yeah. So that's what happened at Stanford. And I think it breaks my heart a little bit to hear that about UC Davis. But it also is wonderful to me that it was part of an Asian American Studies department as opposed to like a language center. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. No, it was which one of you said that? Kimberly said that, it was Jamie. Jamie said that the Cantonese program really reattached you to your roots and really built a foundation. For me, it was kind of similar. I didn't even know my Chinese name until that class. And, the professor was like, "What's your name in Chinese?" I didn't know. So I had to go ask my grandfather, who was still alive at the time. I had to find out what my Chinese name was. And yeah, it was just it was a little bit of a culture shock because, as you guys know, a lot of people take the class who already know how to speak Cantonese. And so I walked in there and everyone was speaking Cantonese already. And I was like, wait, is this the beginning class? And they're like, yeah, you're in the right place. But it was really a connection, for me, and really I didn't, honestly, when I grew up, I didn't know there were different kinds of Chinese because in San Francisco, it was just Cantonese for me. And then, I found out there's Cantonese, there's Manners, Hakka, there's all these different kinds of Chinese. And it was just really it was because it was part of the Asian American Studies program, there was history involved, there was culture. It was really great. So Julia, you took classes as well at City College?
Yes. So what kind of got me started in healthcare is related a little bit to Save Cantonese. And so when I was younger, I witnessed a doctor yelling at my grandparents who didn't speak English, screaming at them, thinking if I speak louder, if I yell louder in English, this older man will be able to understand. And I think seeing someone that I admired being incredibly degraded by someone in healthcare was devastating for me. And to me, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go into healthcare and I'm going to make sure that never happens to anyone's grandparents.
Wow.
I get so emotional when I speak about it because I think in healthcare, I see it all the time. I just started my nursing career and I see specifically Chinese grandparents continually neglected in healthcare because of language barriers, because they don't speak English, because they don't understand how insurance work, because no social worker comes to speak to them in their language. Or, for example, one of the language access laws in San Francisco has demonstrated that Cantonese speakers are more likely to call in for services, but only 1 out of 10 of those services can be fulfilled because there's such a lack of Cantonese speakers. And so when starting this movement, sorry, I get super emotional talking about
Don't apologize for being emotional. That's okay.
So I saw really Save Cantonese not only as something to preserve language, but also making sure that people are able to live and are able to receive services in a language that they understand. I think that's why I love the Save Cantonese movement so much. And that's why I see it very related to my career in healthcare. But Okay, I'm trying to remember what the original question was. Oh, yeah. So I was taking classes at CCSF, and I was in a Cantonese class when one of my friends asked, hey, professor, like, are we going to take Cantonese 10C or 10D next semester? And that's when she decided that or not, she didn't decide, but the World Language Department decided without actually telling anybody. So again, this kind of silent injustice that goes on when it comes to minority languages, that the classes were going to be indefinitely cut. And it was really heartbreaking for all of us. Everyone in class started yelling. People were like, what? Like, why are these classes being canceled? And so what was going through my mind at this was, like, what about all the people who need Cantonese speakers, who need Cantonese social workers, who need Cantonese cops, firefighters, professors? Like, what about all of these folks who are really going to be left behind in the system?
Yeah.
And so that was really what was going through my mind.
I have to say, I'm really moved by what you just shared, Julia. And there's nothing, I think it's beautiful that you feel all the emotions that you feel, because it's made you an incredible organizer. The last 2 years, like, we've been working together. And this is the first I really hear you tell me the why. I think sometimes, our Save Cantonese movement, our organization, we have all these meetings, we're doing all this work all the time. But I think this podcast is a wonderful opportunity to kind of pause and ask why, what got you fired up about this? And hearing you say that, I'm like, it makes complete sense with what I know about you and who you are. And also, it is important to remember. Otherwise, if you keep organizing without remembering the why, without sharing the why with other people, how can you all stay motivated?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
So, Jamie, why don't you walk us through your first thoughts when was it your professor who reached out to you, or how did you hear about the cuts? And then what were the first steps that you took?
Yeah, so it was all done again behind the scenes, Zhang Lo, we've stayed in touch over the years. So I graduated from Stanford in 2010. And I guess I should back up a little bit. The part of the reason why I knew I had to take Cantonese language classes, and so this is my why, right? Right before I started freshman year, my grandfather died. And so my Guang Dong on my mother's side. And so I already lost both my Yen Yen and Ye Ye on my father's side, which meant that only my Popo, my maternal grandmother, is my only surviving grandparent. And this was freshman year of college. And I was like, I don't know, can we swear on this show?
You can if you like.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm just like, if I don't learn Cantonese now, if I can't figure out how to talk with my grandmother now, I'll lose my chance. And I remember freshman year when I was in the Cantonese class with another student, he told me that he petitioned to make Cantonese fulfill the language requirement for just that year, but that his grandparents had died. Like, it was too late for him, and thinking about, I think that's the why for me, like families, being able to know your own family, and to be able to speak with them in their own language instead of a language that is, laced with trauma, right. if you have an argument with your parents in English, it must be really shitty to be the parents, right? Yeah. To have to argue with your kid in a language that is not your own. And so when Zhang Lo reached out to me and having this sort of my own emotional journey with Cantonese, and I realized that there would be future students who would be denied the opportunity to know themselves and denied the opportunity to know their own families. That really, really fired me up. I just thought to myself, basically, when I was like, if Stanford is going to cut Cantonese classes, it was like, it was going to be over my dead body. Like, I was not going to let that happen. And so, we reached out to the university, and the university didn't want to engage with us because we were asking a lot of difficult questions of why is this being cut? Why are other, how was this decision made? Why was the community not consulted? And eventually, when they weren't willing to set up a meeting with us, I wrote a petition. And with that petition, I was like, if my pen had been on fire, or I was typing and my computer could have literally been on fire. I was so angry. just like righteous fury as I was working with fellow organizers and kind of finalizing this petition and then disseminating it. And it circulated like globally. You know, we got 4,000 plus signatures. We got the attention of Celeste Ng and other prominent Asian Americans across the country. And I think we called attention to it. And, you know, Stanford won't say that we save Cantonese, but they changed the decision after.
Yeah.
After the petition went out, right? They're not going to say, "Oh, the petition changed our decision," but something happened, and so we were able to restore 2 of the classes. Originally, there were 3. In the past, there were 4, and since we've made sort of major gains with the campaign, you know, we've been working to create essentially the first endowed Cantonese language program in the country. And for folks who don't know what an endowment is when someone makes such a massive donation that the initiative or the program lives only off the interest. So because of our campaign, we caught the attention of a Hong Konger who's based in the US, and he and his company decided to make a $1 million gift. Oh, wow. That would endow Cantonese language classes at Stanford. And so 5% of $1 million is enough to fund 2 Cantonese classes for all time. Wow. You know, and that's what we want. We want long-term solutions. Right. You know, at Stanford, the long-term solution is an endowment. And we're still looking to raise another $1.5 million to fully endow the program. So we're basically halfway there. But, you know, what the work that Julie has been doing with the City College of San Francisco campaign is also about a long-term solution for Cantonese. And I'll let Julia say more on that.
So when it comes to sustainability of the program, the problem with the Cantonese classes at CCSF was that they weren't associated with, number one, a state-funded certificate. So almost every single language at City College has some sort of language certificate, whether that's German, French, Mandarin, Italian, Spanish, all of these were associated with a certificate. Now, with Cantonese, even though the language has been around for a really long time at the college, there was 0 certificate. Similarly to Stanford too, when a teacher retired or when they passed away, it's very silently, no other Cantonese professor was hired. So at one time, there were actually 5 Cantonese professors at City College versus now there's only 1. And so there's this kind of like silent, I don't know what the word would be, like silent
or something.
Yeah, like silent takeaway of the language that just it wasn't allowed to come back, or the school didn't see it as something important enough.
Yeah.
Now with City College, for us, like, you know, we would love to take private funding, but I think because it's a state and city funded college, even when we offered to fundraise money for the classes, it wasn't accepted, or it was so it's all up to the voters.
But you were able to get the certificate instated, so you can get a Cantonese certificate now.
Yes, you can get a Cantonese certificate. This is one of the first in the community college level, and this is really special too, because this was a very, very grassroots effort. Folks from all over the Chinese American community and also like non-AAPI folks came out to support us. So like the Black Student Union came out to support us. Folks from other ethnic studies department came out to our rallies. And so even people who didn't speak Cantonese, they understood and knew how important the language is to the Bay Area community.
Yeah, I think the other thing that is like, I guess, I think there's another sort of justice element here, which is that Cantonese people from Guang Dong built San Francisco.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like they built San Francisco. And who do you think built Stanford? Stanford got rich off of railroad workers from where? Guang Dong,
so much irony.
These were Cantonese. Cantonese railroad workers built Stanford. They are the reason why Stanford is so wealthy. And one big looming question for me is like, how much of Stanford's endowment is because of Cantonese people, right? Like, what was it that Cantonese people brought to the Bay Area, to California, to the American West, to the nation as a whole? And so I think to kind of not just devalue the language and the culture, but devalue the labor, right? A lot of labor exploitation took place in the 1800s with all these like Cantonese migrants. And I think, when we talk about, like programs being cut, classes being cut, it also means moving full-time professors to part-time. And it also means moving part-time to hourly, right? And so I think that's the other part of it that feels really insulting, that, Cantonese labor is again being cheapened and devalued and exploited, when what we need to do is pay teachers fairly and fund these programs so that they can sustain themselves and so that they can thrive. And so I think there's a lot of sort of like historical parallels between what we're trying to do now at the grassroots level and also what we're trying to address in the past. Like all of it's connected.
Yeah. No, and when you say built, you mean literally they were carving the rocks, they were cutting the wood, they were stacking the bricks. They were literally the folks that built not just Stanford's fortune, but his actual campus. Like they're actually putting the campus with cheap labor because they were the low bid, right?
Exactly. Like the palm trees on Palm Drive, the famous palm trees that line Stanford campus, planted by Cantonese people. So I think we have to and I think that's why for me, I felt that, saving Cantonese was also about, on some level, Stanford starting to acknowledge its debt to Cantonese people.
At the very least, at least offer the language.
I think if we want to talk about, I think I don't want to kind of appropriate the conversation around reparations because it's very different for people for people who are enslaved, right? And they're like, who are not paid labor. I think Chinese people in the 19th century were extremely dirt cheap labor, but it was not the same. And they were like, they largely migrated to the US by choice, right? But I think there is this broader problem of of labor exploitation. And what do we owe people? And the generations that came before us? What do we owe, families and that came before us and that are descendants of the railroad workers?
Yeah, for sure. So you guys got some huge gains, some huge victories. What else is on tap for you guys? You guys are still working. I still hear the energy in your voice. I still hear the passion. But what are some things that Save Cantonese is working on?
So we are broadening our movement. We're not just thinking about Stanford or City College San Francisco. We're thinking about Cantonese programs everywhere. And it's really an exciting time because we just launched the world map of Cantonese programs on our website.
Very cool. Yeah.
So if anyone wants to know where they can find a Cantonese language program, you can go to savecantonese.org/map.
From kindergarten up.
K through 12. Adult classes if you're not in a university or if you're not a child. And so what we're working on is building a database of every Cantonese program that exists. And part of the reason why I think building a database is so important is because, again, when these programs disappear, it's like no one's watching. No one's got their eyes on when a program disappears. And so by collecting this information and checking the sort of, is this program still active? Is it gone? Why is it gone? I think by sort of gathering this information, we can start to let people know, like if you're thinking about cutting this program, someone is watching, and I think that's what it means to maintain a sort of movement and be kind of ready at a moment's notice when something goes down. So I think all of what we're trying to do is to broaden our work and encompass Cantonese programs everywhere that are under threat.
Yeah. Julia, what's going on at City College? You guys working on some more stuff?
Ooh, okay. Well, the fight for Cantonese at City College, it was a really uphill battle. Getting the certificates felt like a fight for our life. Late nights, the professor who was teaching Cantonese wasn't able to get a lot of the resources that she needed to make these certificates. And so on our team, on our side, we were actually the ones writing the paperwork and trying to push the paper through the bureaucracy to get these certificates even started. And so right now what we're working on is trying to make sure that these classes are transferable to the UC level. So right now, Cantonese classes at City College are transferable to the CSUs, so the Cal State system. So meaning like SF State, Cal State East Bay, but these classes can't transfer to UC Berkeley, UC Davis, UC San Diego. And so For a lot of community college students, one of their goals maybe could be going to technical school, but another one of their goals may be going to a UC. And so making sure that students who take these Cantonese classes either as a passion, either for trying to make sure that they can use Cantonese for healthcare, or if they're teachers or any sort of social service, that these classes are just as valued as any of the other language classes, and that they're able to transfer to a UC. And so that's really, really what we're working on right now.
I'm just really glad that you guys are doing what you're doing and keeping these programs alive for the future generations of people who want to learn Cantonese. Kim, you want to tell people where they can find out more about these programs, as well as keeping up with what Save Cantonese is up to?
So if you guys would like to learn more and keep up with Team Save Cantonese and what we're doing, you can check us out at our website, which is savecantonese.org, and follow us on Instagram, Save Cantonese. And for City College, follow them at Save Cantonese _CCSF. And feel free to check them out.
Yeah, go see that. They have a bunch of different headlines on their website. You can see, what did you call it, Jamie? The world map?
The world map of Cantonese programs.
The world map.
So,
it's really cool. I was on there for a little while. I was like, they have that there, like you wouldn't know, you wouldn't think, right? But the diaspora is wide, and there are Cantonese speakers all over this world. I'm sure you guys have stories too, but I love traveling and finding like a Chinese restaurant in Paris or a Chinese restaurant in the UK and hearing people speak Cantonese. It's just kind of a trip, but it's always fun. So everyone, go follow Save Cantonese. Either follow both, Save Cantonese _CCSF or Save Cantonese for Stanford and beyond. Do you want to transition now to talking a little Cantonese?
Hoa!
Hom hoa. Now, I will apologize ahead of time. When I speak Cantonese, people ask me to stop usually. But my tones...
Oh, that happened
all the
to
time.
me too. I was ordering, and I was ordering at Chang Hing's. For any of the listeners who love roast duck, which I'm sure all the SF people who live here, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Noriega?
Noriega.
Okay.
I was like, and he's like, just speak English.
I know. Happens to me
That was
all the
really-
time.
哦，好好喎，你啱啱講都唔錯。Yeah.
He's like, 講英文啊. And I was like,
Ah.
oh, okay.
Oh man. So my wife's family is from Hong Kong, and so when I first married into the family, there was these two kids. They're in their 20s now, but they were like 10 years old. And I would show up and they would say, speak Chinese. Like they were super excited. I was like, oh, you want to hear me speak Chinese? All right. Yeah, let's do this. So I would speak Chinese and then they just start cracking up because it was like entertainment to him. But you know what? I love using it. You know what? My wife, when we're at a restaurant, she defers to me to order, even though she knows I'm not good. But she's more shy about her Cantonese than I am. I'm just
Really?
I'm willing to. I throw it out there. I'm willing to. I'm willing to throw it out. But yeah, she gets a little shy about it sometimes.
Oh,
So,
yeah. All three of us have Hong Kong connections. I don't know, Kimberly, if you have a Hong Kong connection too.
Yeah, I consider myself a Hong Konger, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah,
Families from Hong Kong.
yeah. My
Yeah.
roots are in Toisan. Toisan and Hoi Ping. So
Oh,
but
Hoi Ping.
I
That's a
don't-
lot of
Same with
us
my-
here.
my
I'm
dad's
Hoisan
side
and
is
Hoi
Hoi
Ping
Ping.
too. Yeah.
yeah, I see it in our last names. You know, anytime you see my last name or Kimberly's last name, it's there's probably a village connection there.
Yeah.
Oh, I love to gossip in Toisanese or like to say insults, like those Toisanese insults. They really got it.
Because you got to spit them out. You know, they come out a little wet when you're yelling in Toisan.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, these are villages around Guang Dong who have slight variants to Cantonese. You could probably most Toisan people can understand Canto, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Typically.
Especially in the States.
yeah. I mean, a lot of the early migrants specifically spoke Toi Sanwa, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're similar to kind of like Cantonese that you would hear in Hong Kong, but it's also very, very different. They're technically linguistically under the same sort of family tree for language family tree, but they're kind of they are kind of parallel languages, but different. Like
because in their purest form, they sound very different. And you probably wouldn't be able to understand. I think I grew up as a kid kind of knowing kind of like a mix of everything. But as a kid, I always thought it was just Cantonese, right? Because my parents are gonna tell me like this is some dialect, right? It's just gonna confuse me. And then as I grew older, I was like, wait a second. I'd be at a restaurant and they speak Cantonese, right? And some of these toy sound words would come out, and I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry.
It's like I know a few Toy Son phrases, like in Canto we say like, oh, "你食咗飯未啊?" right? But in Toy Son it's "食飯未啊?" And I'm like, oh, heck fun.
Fun. Yeah. All right. Love it. All right. You guys ready to take a little Cantonese quiz? Not on the language. This is more on culture. So I think this will be fun. All right. Everyone knows that the Cantonese language originated in the city of Guangzhou, which used to be called Canton by the Europeans and Americans. Do you know where the name Canton came from?
Oh, no.
Oh dear.
Yeah. All right.
I always thought about this question, but I don't know.
It's weird, right? Because it is like Guangzhou. How did that become? So it is from the Portuguese in the 1500s. They took Guang Dong, and in their version of Guang Dong became Canton or whatever in Portuguese.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Makes more sense, right?
That's actually what Portuguese say in Portugal and even in Brazil and colonies, their restaurants and stuff. So a lot of things I've noticed is it's Canton something. Because I've been to Portugal and Brazil, and it's quite interesting to see. So that makes a lot of sense.
Wow.
So they thought the city was Guangdong, so they called it Canton or Guangdong or so, whatever they said. They got it wrong. Same with Macau. Do you guys know where Macau came from? The name Macau?
No.
So when they landed in Macau, the Portuguese landed at this temple called the Temple of Ama. And so they asked the sailors, hey, where are we? They just landed. They go, where are we? And then the people at the temple said, so I don't know how to say it, but the Temple of Mago, and the Portuguese said, oh, we're in Macau. So they started calling it Macau. I know, super random, right? But the Portuguese, they have their way of messing things up. For hundreds of years, they mess things up, but it sticks. Sometimes things stick. All right, I think you'll know this one. All right, so approximately 80 million people speak Cantonese around the world. Can you name, now this is according to this one, I think it's called Geeky Glot website. According to Geeky Glot website, what are the top 4 Asian countries that speak Cantonese other than China, and the top 4 Western or European countries that speak Cantonese?
Okay.
So we know one for sure, right?
Yeah. So the top 4 countries where Cantonese speakers are located, the largest number?
Yeah, I think it's number. Yeah, I think it's number.
Okay. And these are countries that are not China.
Well, so the first 2 are now part of China. But they didn't used to be. Yeah, Hong Kong number 1. Hong Kong number 1.
I mean, I guess technically Hong Kong is a special
before 1997. Yeah.
Okay. So Singapore has a lot of Cantonese speakers.
I think that's number 5. So think
Macau
number 2. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. They're both technically, yeah. Okay.
They're SAR, yeah. Someone mentioned it earlier.
Is it top 4 Asian countries?
Yeah, top 4 Asian and top 4 non-Asian countries.
Okay, I feel like if not Singapore, Vietnam has a lot of Cantonese.
Vietnam number 3 and number 4.
Taiwan? I don't know.
Malaysia?
Starts with them, Malaysia.
Okay.
Julia.
Yeah.
So I think the 4 top Asian countries, not China. Well, again, before 1997, 1999. Hong Kong, Macau, Vietnam, Malaysia. Okay, so top 4 non-Asian countries that speak Cantonese.
Australia.
Magok. It's, Australia, I think, was on the list, but it's a little further down.
Oh,
The UK.
the UK.
UK, yeah, UK number 2.
Canada.
Canada number 3.
Okay.
Kim's on fire.
Wait, hold on. So
This
we
one's
have
hard. Number 4 is a little tricky.
What's the fourth?
Canada, US, UK,
Portugal?
Australia.
No, it's one that I didn't think of. France. It is
What?
France. Yeah.
Oh, fuck, guac.
They had I think they had a lot of dealings with Asia as well. But yeah, Cantonese speakers in France.
I think
And
it's
I
because
saw
of
that-
like French Indochina, so like kind of like that Southeast Asia, like
Oh.
colonialism
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, and then maybe just people landing in the UK or something end up in France too. But yeah, so those are the 4. Well, again, according to this one website, so I don't have any actual proof of those. But yeah, you did well though. You did real well. All right, now this one is kind of fun too. Can you name 2 words other than food? So like lychee doesn't count. Can you name 2 words, not food, that English borrows from Cantonese?
Chow fun.
Not food.
Chow.
Oh, hold on. You said no food. You said no food.
No, chow counts. Chow counts because when you say, "Oh, this is some good chow,"
Oh,
Okay.
You know-
versus chow mein.
or like puppy chow or whatever, like this is good chow. That comes from the word chow, like from chow mein.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got one. All right,
Okay.
can you think of another one?
Another. So it
Another
borrows from English.
No, but English borrows from Canto.
Wait, English.
Other way around. So
Oh.
so chow is
Yeah,
an
yeah.
English word that we use to describe food, but it comes from Cantonese.
Word that comes from Cantonese. I mean, dim sum.
Dim sum.
That's
Oh, it's still
food.
a food thing.
Yeah,
Dang.
yeah.
No, but it's interesting. When you're in Australia, they say yum cha. And I've heard people not Cantonese say, "Oh, yeah, we're going to have some yum cha." Like I watch YouTube and they say yum cha. So I'll give you that one as well. There's one, it literally means to knock heads.
装讨.
Yes.
It's an English word.
Not heads.
Oh.
Kowtow.
Oh.
You know the term. You're like,
Kowtow.
you know the term. I'm not going to kowtow to you, or I'm not going to kowtow to anyone.
Kowtow to him.
Yeah, that's Canto, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's
Wait,
like bowing
kung
or
fu.
whatever. Yeah, kung fu
Kung
for
fu.
sure. Monsoon is another one. Means munsoi or full of water. And typhoon. Typhoon is
Typhoon.
Taiwanese wind.
Yeah, 台风.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's a bunch. And you know what? I always thought ketchup, ketchup. Because it makes sense, right? Tomato sauce or tomato gravy. But I think that comes from Hakka. So that's actually,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So it's fun,
Wait,
right?
Ketchup's from
Yeah.
Hakka?
That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I think so.
What?
I want to do a whole episode on English words that come from Asian words. But yeah, I always thought ketchup just makes sense, right? It's tomato gravy.
That's just
But,
something
yeah.
I never thought about, but now that you say it.
I know, right? All right. So let's get into a little Cantonese. What are your favorite things to say in Cantonese? Now, should we give the warning? Are you going to say bad words, Julie?
Okay, I talked to my friends about it and they're like, don't say that on the podcast. Like, that's so inappropriate. And I was like, okay, I'll keep it PG. I'll keep it PG.
We should have a special bonus episode, which I'll put the explicit tag.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because I'm a San Francisco Chinatown kid, so like
It's-
cussing in Canto,
it's
that's just
gritty.
like every day.
Yeah. Yeah, no
Like,
kidding.
You gotta insult somebody, then you gotta insult them, their ancestors, 8 generations back. And that's how you're gonna greet your friend.
Yeah.
All right. So anybody have a slang term that you like to say that's just fun to say?
有冇搞錯啊?
Yamogao.
Oh yeah. That's a good one. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, or you got a problem, right? That's a fun one, and it's pretty clean, right? It's not that.
Yeah,
it's
that's
that
not
rude,
that's
yeah.
not bad.
That's clean. That's clean.
That's clean.
Mhm.
Oh, I was gonna say like, oh, they mong cha cha. Like, are you
Mhm.
fuzzy? Like, come on.
What does that mean, though? What does that
I think it means, like-
figuratively mean?
I think it means like, oh, you're not like,
Like, hey, you don't get it?
yeah, like you're not thinking
Oh,
right.
your
Like,
brain is fuzzy.
Yeah, your brain is
Yeah.
fuzzy.
Yeah.
clouded judgment.
I like one. Do you guys know what fong fei gay means?
放飛機.
Yeah.
To fly the airplane.
To fly the plane. but it means when you stand up someone, when you flake out, or yeah, my pronunciation. Sorry, everybody.
Oh, no. I was repeating it. Your pronunciation is fine. I'm just trying to memorize it by saying it out loud.
Yeah, it's like if someone doesn't show up, like, oh, Julia von Fege, means that you flaked out. All right, you got any other idioms are fun? You got any idioms?
Oh man.
You know what might be fun is, okay, on the count of 3, like I don't know that many bad words, but say your favorite bad word in Cantonese and I'll bleep it out. So the audience will have to guess what you said.
I love that.
All right, and go on for a while. Like do your best insult. Like go on for a while.
Oh,
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh man! All right, that'll be fun. So the audience has no idea what we just said. So. All right. Do you guys have a favorite Cantonese song, movie, TV show, or YouTube channel that you watch?
Oh man.
There's so many.
There's a lot, but I love watching Cantonese with Brittany and Cook with Lau.
Made with Lau. Yeah.
Made with Lau. Yeah. Yeah, he's good too. He just goes for it with the dad. Just goes for it with the Cantonese. He's not holding you back. I love that show too.
Yeah, I love that show. I grew up with a lot of like 80s, 70s types of music.
Oh, okay.
Because my parents really liked it. So I love anything from that era.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of that, Julia and I actually saw this movie called Anita Williamsall, which is kind of like a documentary life-ish movie kind of her life, and it kind of shows her kind of like relationship with other people in the industry, with her sister and like mentors and whatnot. And I think for me growing up, Anita was someone I absolutely adored as a kid. As kind of from like the 80s pop culture scene as a singer. And it was also really great to see her friendship with Leslie Cheung, in that film, because for me, I'm like the biggest Gogol fan. I love him so much. So I think in terms of films, that's probably my favorite like Cantonese movie, at least recent Cantonese movie.
Yeah. I think Wong Kar-wai's In the Mood for Love destroyed me.
Absolutely.
That movie messed me up. I was emotionally devastated for weeks afterwards. I just thought, oh my God, like it just hits you somewhere really deep.
Yeah, we did a whole episode on Tony Leung. And that movie, Sabrina came on and did that one with me. But the visuals, the acting, just the quietness of it, the not speaking parts, those are amazing. Yeah, I love Wong Kar-wai. I love In the Mood for Love, of course, but Chungking Express, love it. So yeah, I think it came out too early in a way because, back then, late 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, there wasn't streaming, and so you literally had to go to Chinatown and get a VCD or, go to one of those shops in the outer Sunset and get a VHS tape of these things. And so I think it was just hard to hard to find them. They were popular, and so a lot of these movies made it eventually onto some kind of streaming platform. But yeah, I think it was a little too early because now it's so easy to get streaming, so easy to watch Korean movies or J-dramas or whatever. But now it's Canto kind of faded. For a while, Cantonese stuff was it out of Asia. Cutting edge, the movies, the music. I mean, a lot of people forget that Canto pop was the first Asian pop to kind of really be big. The superstars, the Wong Fei, the Anitas, the Andy Chung, all those people were huge stars in the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah.
That was an era.
All right. Any more shows or movies you guys want to plug?
I wanted to plug some artists, some current artists. Check out Mirror, Burn Hall, Tyson Yoshi, Gareth T, Wu Tang. And there's so many great artists out there because I think something that a lot of people have been talking about lately, especially in the past few years, is they're saying like the Cantonese like pop culture scene is dead. I think that's extremely untrue. There's definitely a new movement of people of my generation making their waves in Hong Kong, on the mainland and beyond. And I think it's really great to see because it's also like in their craft, especially in music, a lot of them, I think in the 80s, it's like a lot of like kind of like they're more like poetic, lyrical lyrics, but like today's music, it's more of like conversational, which I really like because that's the stuff I understand. Because if you're, even like Guang and Nita, like when she sings her songs, I'm like, okay, what exactly does this mean? So I like have to look it up. But if it's like artists from today, a lot of times I'm like, okay, I know exactly what they're singing about. It's a lot more relatable. And I think that could be why they've kind of made a comeback, I think, because it's like people understand, like actually understand kind of like the lyrics because they're more conversational.
I think our ancestors didn't do us a favor either. I think they intentionally made Cantonese hard. Like they wanted to be elite, right? They wanted to be like, oh, we have more tones than Mandarin. Ours is more complicated. To speak Cantonese, you really have to work at it. It's not something that you could just pick up. You really have to work at it. And so I think that made it difficult for folks like me, and if you're not a native speaker, to speak it well is you need a lifetime. You literally need a long, long time to get good at Cantonese. And I'm not even close to being good at it, but it's hard to sound good at it if you didn't grow up with it. And so it's kind of like they made it as sort of a way of me being a lead and excluding other people, I think. And it kind of is coming back to get us now, where it's not that easy to learn. It's really a hard language. Default people go to Mandarin. There's only 4 tones. It's a little easier to pronounce for Western speakers. And there's the pinyin, really a kind of established pinyin. So yeah, unfortunately, our ancestors kind of did us dirty on that.
I think in some ways they, like whether it was elitist or not, the payoff is terrific, right? Because Cantonese is such a fun language to learn. It's silly, it's playful, it's musical, and I think like it off, and because of the tone, specifically because of its musicality, I think that makes it so much more unique, I think, and expressive than a lot of other languages. Like there are other languages you don't have tones, and meaning, nuance, the sort of like the emotion behind it is not as like loud as it is with Cantonese. So it's an art,
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, something to also note, like Cantonese is kind of like the language of a lot of Chinese dynasties. And if you kind of like look back at even like Chinese literature, I'm a huge Chinese literature nerd. I took it in college. If you read the poems, the literature, it's better in Cantonese, and I'm pretty sure that's how it was written back in the day. So something to kind of like think about it, because it's also like with Cantonese comes the culture, the heritage, and everything with it, right? And I think that's really important to not forget.
Do you guys want to, speaking of difficult, do you guys want to try some Cantonese tongue twisters?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So let me share my screen here. I don't know how well this will play on the air. We'll see. All right, so...
Oh, I totally remember doing these on the playground as a kid.
Okay.
黐線蜘蛛條蜘蛛絲黐住支樹枝. So it means the crazy spider's spider thread is stuck to the branch.
Okay. Anybody want to take a stab? I can't do it.
黐線蜘蛛條蜘蛛絲黐住支樹枝.
Not bad. Yeah, I'll give you that one.
That's good.
All right, let's try the next one.
Next we have 入食物實驗室撳緊10個緊急掣. So entering the food laboratory and holding 10 emergency buttons.
All right, Kim, I see your lips moving.
I can't.
Julia, you want to try?
Okay, 入食物實驗室撳緊10個緊急掣. I don't know, that was hard. That was really hard. I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah. We're just going with the pingum. All right, we'll end it with that one. Thanks for playing along. With those of you out there, can you do any of these tongue twisters? I'll put a link to this YouTube and you guys can follow it. At the end of each episode, we like to ask our guests to choose an infatuation. An infatuation is anyone in the Asian community that you admire, whether they are living or deceased, someone you know, or someone that inspires you from afar. So let's see. Jamie, do you have an infatuation?
I do. And I hope you don't mind. I'm going to probably have to hop off after I answer the question. But Denise Ho is my infatuation because she is a Hong Konger, a Canto pop singer. And I think she's also Canadian. But she was one of the first famous people in Hong Kong to come out as queer. She's a lesbian and I'm queer myself. And so to actually see another queer Cantonese person in mainstream like Cantonese and Hong Kong culture come out and also, be very vocal about her beliefs. And, she was blacklisted by the Chinese government for her support of the democracy movement. And she was willing to sacrifice essentially her career for the things that she believes in. And so I just have such respect for that kind of activism.
All right. Great choice. And thank you so much, Jamie. Yeah. And we'll bump into you one of these days. So we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, this has been so much fun. Thank you.
All right, great. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, so Julia, who is your or one of your infatuations?
Oh, I have a long list, but I think someone who came to mind immediately was Anna May Wong.
Yeah.
Who's the first Asian American to be on a U.S. coin. And she's also Canto. Specifically, she's Toy Son. She's Toy Son. And so she didn't accept any roles that stereotyped her in American Hollywood. And I think even just like standing up to administration, I think it's really hard especially like growing up in a pretty traditional Chinese home, like being able to stand up for myself, like that's really scary. Yeah. And knowing that this actress back in the day also stood up for herself, it's really inspiring.
Yeah. When is this? 1920s? This is...
I want to say 1920. So her first roles were, definitely back in the day. 1924 was when she played in The Dragon Lady.
Mm-hmm. But she got kind of sick of that. She was kind of like, you know what? Can I play something other than The Dragon Lady, please? Yeah. No, she's very cool. Yeah, good choice. Do you have one of the quarters yet? I got one in my pocket the other day. I was super excited.
No. Can I see it? Can you put it close to the screen?
It's on my Instagram.
Wait, okay. I'll look it up on Instagram.
No, they're very cool. No, you'll find one. It'll be like a treasure hunt. One of these days, you'll just find one in your pocket. You're like, no way.
Yeah, I need to find where to get one.
Yeah, you can't. I just got it by chance. I just found it and I was like, oh, no way. So yeah, very cool. Can you imagine 1920s? Even now, there's not that many Asian, actresses that are really well known. But 1920s, that's 100 years ago. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, good choice.
If you want to put someone in, this is a plug for a homie. His name is Brian Ho. He's on Boys Planet 999, the new audition trainee show. So shout out to Brian because he's living out his K-pop dreams, and y'all should go support him.
All right, shout out Brian. Come on the podcast, Brian. We're here for you.
When he comes home.
All right. Yeah, we're working on some stuff, right, Kim? We got some people lined up. All right, so that does it for our episode on Save Cantonese. Thank you to my guests, Julia, Jamie, and of course, my co-host, Kimberly. Thank you for all you're doing to help save the future of Cantonese language programs.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you so much.
If you want to keep up with the Save Cantonese program, you can follow them at savecantonese.org and follow them on Instagram at savecantonese_CCSF for City College or Save Cantonese for Stanford and beyond. And of course, you know how to follow us. You can follow us at The Infatuasian Podcast on Instagram or Facebook. And we love to receive emails, so you can email us at infatuasianpodcast@gmail.com. So thanks everyone out there for listening. We appreciate your support. If you know anyone who would enjoy this episode, please send them a link. Help us out. That's probably our best form of advertising, and we appreciate every referral that we can get. So make it easy for them. Send them the Spotify link or send them the Apple Podcast link. So on behalf of Jamie, Julia, Kimberly, and myself, we hope that you are all happy, healthy, and safe out there. We will talk to you again soon. Bye.
早唞
Bye. Good night.
再見
Joe Tao, Joy King.